everybody. This is Steve Cary, producer and sometimes host of the Thrive While Loving an Addict podcast. And today, again, I'm here on the interviewer side speaking with KL Wells. KL, it's really good to talk to you again today. How are you doing?
Yeah, it's a great day, and I'm looking forward to this.
All right. Well, I'm not going to waste any time, and I'm going to cut right to the topic at hand. And I'm going to quote something that I've heard from you and others. And I've heard it from you consistently, and it's had an impact on me. And I'm guessing for our audience, there are some out there who have equally been touched by this, but I want to dig into what it means and how to really get the most out of it. So here is the statement that I've heard you say: life is happening for you, not to you. Can you tell me what that means to you?
Well, I think we generally live in a world in which, particularly in the world of being a parent of an addict in addiction mode, it very much feels like sometimes that what they're doing to us. And I think about a couple instances when that could have been my story. And one in particular, in the course of Sam's journey with addiction, he was given the opportunity to do drug court. And that was a year-long program. And doing that program, he was, clean and sober. He was doing really well. He'd gotten rehired again, doing a job, and back in life, so to speak, and being successful. And when they graduated drug court, he and his friend celebrated by doing meth. And obviously, yes, disappointed. And I was like, okay, he's not done with this journey yet. And one of my friends said to me, doesn't he realize what he's doing to you? And I remember thinking, that's an odd question, because I orient to that, the crises or traumas or things that have shown up to knock me on my butt have been in service of my life, have come to serve me, to be for me, to mine resiliency muscles and gratitude muscles and all of these things. And so it never occurred to me that he was doing this to me, which for me means that I'm just trying to manage the situation instead of having my own agency in who I am in the moment. And so that particular situation stands out.
At that time when that happened, when he had gone through that phase, when he was in drug court and then celebrated by doing drugs again, where were you in your journey in terms of coming to terms with how to thrive or how to even manage through this? Were you like, clearly you're not in the beginning because you're able to have that response, but just for kind of background, how much effort and time and practice had you put in to get yourself in that position? Where were you in that phase?
Well, I would say that the belief about life is showing up for me instead of happening to me started way back in the 1990s. And it has been perfected in so many of the life experiences that I've had. I think it's particularly challenging when we are a parent of somebody who is dealing with addiction. And Sam being an adult dealing with addiction, you can get really clear that they're an adult. You cannot manage the situation. It is theirs to do. And clearly, they're either going to manage it into continued use and eventually kill themselves, or they're going to step into recovery and a recovery that might stick. And so I just got really clear that this was on his terms. This wasn't on my terms. And so holding space for him to do this journey on his terms, no matter what direction it went, because you just don't know. I was like, I can't be in a position where I'm reacting to everything he's doing as if it's happening to me. So who am I going to be in this from the perspective of this is actually happening for me? And a number of years later at this point, with him being clean and sober for almost 3 years, he and I are able to very much talk about how his journey was such a gift for me because of the work.
Is that a type of discussion that you actually have now in these days, one-on-one?
Yes. And he's very clear. I mean, I could not be the executive coach business consultant that I am without having gone through that hero's journey. We are in extraordinary times right now. A lot of things are happening that have never happened before. The pace of change is off the charts. AI is front and center and disrupting everything. And there's a lot of trauma that's happening. And so the gifts and lessons that came out of that experience with Sam have given me the opportunity to grow my calm muscle, my not just my resiliency muscle, but my peace and calm. And to understand that when I have a client or people that I'm working with that are going through really traumatic things or really tough things or heartbreaking things or grief stricken things, I can feel for them without taking it on because it's not mine to take on. It's their journey. I'm just going to hold space for them to be present and be in their journey of grief and trauma and crisis. And that's a really different position to take.
It is. And I'm wondering for those who might be listening to this, who are on the other side of where you are,
Mm-hmm.
and they're listening to this thinking that life is happening for me. Meanwhile, somebody that they love, could be their son or daughter, is going through full addiction mode. And
Mm-hmm.
how can you help people, or what could somebody take away from this to know that there's a way, there's a path? Because it seems like it could be so daunting, so challenging to go from I'm in full on crisis. How do I even get out of this where I can even believe that this could be happening for me?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you definitely have to step back from what's taking place to get a breath, and I've talked a lot about you have to feel the feelings. Like the day that Sam got arrested and I witnessed that, I had a complete emotional meltdown after that experience. And so I allowed myself to have the grief of that experience and the trauma of that experience. And then I did work to move that energetically out of my body. And by doing a number of things, energetic work and tapping and so on and so forth. And then I moved into, okay, who am I going to be in this moment? And my decision was not, I'm going to rescue him. My decision was not, I'm going to bail him out. My decision was not that I'm going to try and save him from himself. My decision really was, he's going through this experience. I need to be very clear about taking care of myself at a very high level so that I can thrive in the midst of the chaos and the destruction and the trauma and the grief and love him with boundaries. And those boundaries, were very clear in my mind at that point. No money, no bailout. This is yours to do. I never paid for him to go to rehab. I never paid for a highfalutin attorney. I never got him off the hook of the consequences that he needed to go through as he was working with his own addiction. And knowing full well, I think about this all the time and it seems so overused, but it very much is the chrysalis, is any bailout, any rescuing of them is cutting the chrysalis that the butterfly is struggling and struggling, and struggling to get out of. They have to go through the struggle. That is the hero's journey.
Yeah. So it sounds like recognizing that regardless of what you could do, want to do to make the pain go away or help the situation, there is the journey that they own and that is completely theirs. And they have to make that internal shift if they're going to make a change.
It's theirs to do or not to do. And so what I say routinely is, I don't begin to know what his life's purpose is. However, being on this journey with him, I know what my life's purpose is, and that is to learn to hold the space for people in grief and trauma and not rescue them.
That is such a challenging and difficult mental position to think about
Mm-hmm.
because us as humans, and especially as parents, We
Mm-hmm.
want to fix things when they're broken.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm not thinking about the person, but a bad event happens.
Mm-hmm.
Want to go in and fix it and make it so it's better and then
Mm-hmm.
move on. And
Mm-hmm.
what I hear you saying is like, that's not the job that we can do. And there is no fixing to be done that we can
Mm-hmm.
do. We cannot control the situation that somebody else is going through. We can only control how we respond to it. Even knowing your journey and even knowing this topic, I still find that idea massively challenging because the first instinct for me when bad things happen is how do I fix it and get
Mm-hmm.
in there and work on it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're dealing with people, you can't fix them.
Mm-hmm.
You can, as you say, take care of yourself
Mm-hmm.
and then set the conditions so that they can go through whatever journey that they must go through.
Yeah, I fully believe that we're all here for a purpose and that we're all on a journey to hopefully express that purpose and be an exemplar of that purpose while we're still here. So for me, having been through this journey with Sam for 20 years, all that we went through was in service of me being able to be who I am in this moment in time for so many people. Because if I can do what I've done out of that experience and still be sane and still be able to laugh and have joy and to do work I love and to have a great marriage and to still do the things that I love, like backpacking and hiking and have great friends and so on and so forth. What I find is that people who adopt the idea that this is happening to them, they get in the hole with the person that's dealing with the addiction. And then that becomes a very dark place to reside. And I hear so many stories of people that they've gone through all their money. They've mortgaged their houses. They have, put a roof over their head and fed them and clothed them and kind of, I mean, in so many ways that keeps them in the addiction. So I go back to that time when Sam, made the turn, the final turn, May 10th, 3 years ago. And I will always remember that phone call when he was at just desperation and addicted to fentanyl. And his best friend had moved out of the apartment they were sharing because he was stealing and blind. And he was alone and he was terrified. And he begged me to bring him home. He was on the East Coast, I was on the West Coast. And it really didn't matter where we were. But I said no, because that would not have gotten him to potentially recovery. That would have been the ultimate rescue, to bring him home, put a roof over his head, make sure he's got square meals, all of those things. That would not have served. And yet in that no, I knew I may never hear from him again.
Yeah, and that moment right there speaks to that massive tension between wanting to fix things and taking care of yourself and being true
Mhm.
to how you can control what you can control and not the
Mhm.
other person. And
Mhm.
recognizing that, as you said, had you done the rescue, it
Mm.
would have been the ultimate rescue. And that might have felt good for a moment, thinking that you're really trying to manage the situation. But again, you don't have any impact in whether Sam would have used again after that. That was a choice and is a choice that only he has.
Yeah. And my experience is that if we rescue them, we're just keeping them in their addiction. We're just supporting, enabling their addiction. I remember this was years ago. One of my friends' son was dealing with addiction, and literally she took the door off of his bedroom so that she could monitor what he was doing. And I was like, even back then, I thought, well, that's crazy. Like, if they want to do drugs, there's no way you're going to manage the situation and keep them, from getting high or drunk or whatever that is. And that's the truth.
Yeah, and I've heard you speak about this numerous times too. That understanding and recognizing that when somebody's in addiction mode, their brain is hijacked.
Hmm.
And the point I'm really getting to on all this is when you have made the ship that we've been talking about, life is happening for you and being in control of how we respond to situations and being
Mhm.
intentional about that, you also recognize that the person on the other side is hostage to their situation. And
Mhm.
you can't control them anyway, but you're also able to look at it even a little bit more objectively and understand that the disease has taken over and
Mhm.
that their primary position is to get the next thing.
Yeah. So, from a brain
But if it,
science perspective, I think it's important to remind our audience that when you're in addiction mode, the addiction takes the first position in terms of survival in your brain. That's why people who are in addiction mode will do just crazy things. Like they would never do it when they're clean and sober, and because they're desperate to survive. And so they're going to do whatever it takes in order to survive until all the avenues are just cut off, which is what happened for Sam. All of the avenues that he was looking for to rescue him were cut off. And he had enough experience with success in his life and work and knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that because I continued to deliver the message, no matter what happens here, you were always loved with boundaries. That that cutting everything off from him brought him to his knees to a point where he was willing to find the solution for him to get clean and sober. And he has been working a program, you know, of recovery ever since. And so what I do want to say too for the audience is every time he relapsed and went into another, treatment center, which was 12 times, he picked up something and then he relapsed and then he went back in and then he picked up something else or more things and then he went and relapsed again. And that was the story I was telling, that every time he was learning, he was picking up tools, he was picking up a new way of knowing, no matter how many relapses he had. And my hope was that eventually he would be able to seize recovery and stick to it.
do you have a sense of what was different in this most recent time that is where we're at now, 3 years in recovery, clean and sober? Do you think it was that he had hit the lowest point in his journey, or because there was an accumulation of tools that he was able to pick up, or a combination of all the above? Is that something that you've been able to pick up from speaking with him?
And we haven't talked specifically about that. What I would surmise is that he hit his bottom, you
Yeah.
know, and we think we know when they hit their bottom, and we don't know, because I can tell you how many bottoms I thought he hit, and it was not his bottom. So he hit his bottom, and he knew enough about recovery to look for a solution. But it was all him. I didn't fly out to North Carolina. I've never seen his recovery center. I was available when he called me the night of the 10th, I believe it was, of May, to know that he was in a treatment center. And then I didn't hear from him for a number of months. So then you have to have really done your work to be able
Mhm.
to live in the silence of recovery at that point and check yourself at the door when your brain starts to tell you stories, because it will. And so this is about us taking our power back.
Let's talk a little bit more, and this is going to be a challenge. So we don't have a lot of time, but so maybe just two or three things that the audience can take away from this conversation. And I want to frame it this way. The title of our podcast is Thrive While Loving an Addict. And embodied in that idea is bad things do happen, can happen, will happen, and you're going to be challenged in life. And your point of this is we can thrive despite those bad things happening. We can thrive while they're happening.
Hmm.
And it seems I'm fully in the belief side of that with you. Yeah, when I look back at this, it's really hard to think about the idea of thriving when you're really faced with something that seems like an existential threat or a change. And I'll wrap up the question this way.
Yeah.
We talk to a lot of people who have gone through the journey and have found success on the other
Hmm.
side.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, I think so many people in our audience and other people out there are in the beginning phase when
Hmm.
it feels like nothing is working.
Hmm.
And I really want to get to that point where, like, how can you make those first critical moves that take you from that spot where you think nothing is possible to there is life and it is possible to thrive.
Well, I want to kind of put a pin in what you said that nothing is working. Usually, when you're in the beginning stages, quote, nothing's working means you're trying to manage the situation. So I'm going to strongly encourage you to stop trying to manage their addiction. Get to an Al Anon meeting, listen to our podcast, talk with others who have loved others that have done it from a healthy perspective. There are books like Be a Loving Mirror by Beverly Buncher. There are multiple books out there about how to be in this space, loving someone and thriving in the midst of their addiction. Their addiction is not yours to fix. So our job on the other side of that is to love ourselves, draw our, be really clear. I love you, and these behaviors are not going to work for me. And sometimes that means you're not going to talk to them for a while. And so then it's dealing with, okay, how do I navigate the pain of disconnection from somebody that I love, particularly a child, an adult child. And I just continued to lean into the things that brought me joy in my life. I wasn't going to give up my joy. I wasn't going to give up the things that I love to do. I never missed, a summer of backpacking. That was life-giving to me, to be able to get into the wilderness and move and go through those experiences and disconnect from the journey of loving somebody in addiction. I could turn my brain off and get a break. And I think we all need a break from the things that challenge us the most so we can breathe.
I think that's a good spot to end on, and I'll reframe what I heard because I think it's profound and really important. And thank you for picking up on something I said, because that was a thinking habit that just came out as I was asking a question. And that idea that nothing is working, I'm trying everything. And you could translate that to all sorts of challenges in your life. And my takeaway from that, what I just heard is stop what you're doing and really examine what it is you're trying to do and rise above that question. Really think carefully. What is it that I'm trying to do? And do I have any ability to change that part of whatever it is that's bothering me? So that I've tried everything. Well, maybe I need to stop trying all those things and rethink the question. And then what am I trying to do to fix myself? Or what am I trying to do to manage how I'm navigating this, and flip that question back on yourself as a start.
And I think about that question differently. It's not like, what am I trying to do? It's like, what's the outcome I'm trying to create? And so I was really clear the outcome that I wanted to create for myself was thriving in the midst of Sam's disease, and getting really clear about that. And then learning how to thrive from other people who have thrived, and talking to more and more people, the more addicts, people that have been in recovery that I've talked to, they're like, you did the absolute right thing. You can't control my disease. You could never control my disease. That's an illusion. That's a lie we tell ourselves. So we feel better.
I think that's perfect. And let's end with that. What are the outcomes that you want? And then you work backwards from that and figure out how to do it. It's a perfect way to end the conversation, and a perfect message to leave people with, because that is maybe the new North Star that we can reorient ourselves towards. What are the outcomes that we desire, that we really want in life and for this moment, and start thinking in those terms, that it will start to reveal what are the next steps. As you said, who do I need to talk to, as opposed to what do I need to do next?
Yeah. Yeah. If there's anybody listening to this and they're catching themselves thinking, what do I want? What's the outcome I want? And you're thinking, I want them clean and sober. You need to stop, because you have no control over that.
Perfectly said. Well, thank you again for sharing your message, your journey, and the gift that you give to everybody. And I'll remind everybody listening out there that no matter what you're going through and how desperate times feel that you are not alone. And that's why we have this platform, and that is what we do and why we do it. So,
Mhm.
KL, until next time, thank you very much. And thank you all for listening to this.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate you.